There you
I
go.
am now recording. Hooray. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to have folks here from all over. My name is Kim Goff, and I hope everyone is safe and well in these very different times. I'm a learning program developer here at the Royal BC, I'm not at the Royal BC Museum now. Like many of you, been asked to work from home. And in this series, RBCM at Home, we're going to explore what working from home looks like, and we'll visit with members of our curatorial and collection staff and discover how they're doing their work. We might also discover how their work is reflected in their homes or interests or hobbies that they have. Today's presenter is Invertebrate Zoology Collection Manager Heidi Gartner. As a collection manager, Heidi is responsible for maintaining and aiding in the development of the Invertebrate Collection, which consists of more than 70,000 lots of specimens. Although not originally from the coast, Heidi took to it like a fish from water, and we'll hear about some of her main interests today. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, actually. It's nice, a nice day. And I'm gonna just pass it over to you to start sharing with us here.
Oh, wonderful.
And there's hello from Hannah. I think she might know you.
Yes, that's my niece. Hi, Hannah. Thanks
nice.
for listening. Yeah, so thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my job and some really neat deep sea environments we have off of the BC coast that you may or may not know about. So why am I giving this talk today? Well, my job being an invertebrate collection manager at the Royal BC Museum is a very strange job. That's a mixture of being a marine biologist, so studying the animals in our ocean, being a science communicator, so talking to people like you, and then also I'm a librarian of dead things in jars, which is a really strange job. So usually when I'm working, it's at the Royal BC Museum here. So I hope you guys can see this on your screen. This is the exhibits building, and we also have our partners such as IMAX and our museum gift shop. And it's on the traditional territories of the Lakota speaking people, so the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation. And I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm now working on more of the Centralpan speaking people, so the Coast Salish or Saanich nations. And in addition to the exhibits building, we've got this really tall building to the side here, and that's full of collections. So human history collections, natural history collections as well, and these really tell the story of BC. For me, it's the BC's biodiversity. So when I say a library of dead animals in jars, this is what I mean. That's my colleague here, Hugh, on some tall stairs looking at the specimens we have, and each specimen is kind of like, think about it as a book in the library. So each specimen has data associated with it, where it was collected and when and what's its name and all that fun stuff. And to give you an idea of the volume material, each one of these units rolls open, so it's like stacked shelving in a library. And what we have is we have 70,000 lots, and a lot can be a lot of things in a lot. So for example, this is a plankton tow full of things called like krill and little crustaceans and all sorts of different little animals, up to single large individuals. This is a giant Pacific octopus. We store them wet in alcohol or dry, such as these Puget Sound king crab you're seeing in this box here. But they're stored the same way. They have that data associated with it. And we share that data with researchers around the world through our online searches through our database. And we also do keep a small tissue collection. So we take DNA samples when we go out and collect animals nowadays. This is the laboratory down in the basement. I'm going to be the first to admit it's not always very clean, but I wanted to highlight this because it's an active space. The collection is always growing. We get to do research ourselves, and we always get donations, and we collaborate with different institutions. And I wanted to bring that up too, because one of the reasons that I'm giving this talk today is actually not because I'm an expert on deep sea biology, but because we've got to work with collections. So for example, I'm going to talk about hydrothermal vents as one of the environments. Dr. Raina Tunnicliffe donated them to us at the museum. So I've gotten to work with incredible specimens. I've gotten to work with incredible biologists. So for example, our research associate at the museum is Dr. Henry Reiswig. He's one of the world experts on glass sponges. And then I also collaborate with institutions a lot. So I'm going to highlight one is Fisheries and Oceans Canada. I'm often going to refer to them as DFO. And particularly, I'd like to say thanks to the Deep Sea Ecology Program. We've been working with them, and a lot of this story is their story. So thank you, Dr. Charisse Paris and Tammy Norgard. And in fact, Charisse has shared some of her slides with me today. And just for example, what those collaborations look like, the Deep Sea Ecology Program was out exploring and we were partnered with them, and I was watching this live stream video from a ship. It's incredible, the new technology. And I saw this urchin that I knew we didn't have in the collection, and it just looked unique to me. And so I was able to chat to them through a science window, and within 10 minutes they had collected a specimen for us, and it then got donated to the museum, deposited there. It's now in our safekeeping, and the experts had trouble agreeing what species this was. So I've actually had to work with sending this large urchin down to California, if you can believe it or not. So this just kind of highlights what we do and why I'm giving this talk today, but I will be the first to admit that I'm not the ultimate expert on this. But I would still like to share with you the story of BC's deep sea. So this is an image of our coastline. BC has over 27,000 kilometers of complex coastal geography, like just the fjords and all the bays and inlets. We also have incredible continental shelf. And then we're in this unique position that if you look off of our coast, we have an incredible amount of what's called hydrography. Topography would be what it is in land terms, but basically a lot of very unique stuff happening off our coast, largely because of tectonic plates. So you can see mountains, and I should talk about some other things that happen. So let's go exploring together. Let's imagine that you're going to go down into the deep ocean. How researchers do this nowadays is often with remotely operated vehicles, so little robots that can send under, but you can explore however you want. You can pretend you dive down. So right at the surface, you're going to notice there's lots of birds and whales and there's fish around, and take a deep breath and go under. And you're going to notice right away that the world turns this kind of bluish green. Light is the red color in light that gets attenuated out first. So there's tons of plankton around and little fishes. And then you keep darkening down, and pretty quickly it's getting dark. And actually within 200 meters, it's going to turn into pitch black. Light can't penetrate any further than that. There are going to be random little animals that pop up to you as you go down, like plankton, so the juvenile stages of things, or jellies of different sorts, or even weird squid and octopus. But it's pretty black. And you're going to go all the way down to about 2,000 meters, which is 2 kilometers. And you're going to hit the bottom, and you turn on your lights on your ROV, and this is what you expect to see: mud. Maybe with a rock, maybe with the occasional specimen, or sorry, not specimen, but animal. That's what they used to think the deep sea all looked like. But really, there's a lot of incredible things that live in our coast. And it's not so much like this as they anticipated. And in fact, it can often be something like this, almost like out of a Dr. Seuss book. So this is the remotely operated vehicle that we have here, the yellow machine there. And this is looking out on a seamount where, believe it or not, these tall, bugle-looking, strange things are glass sponges, and there's just incredible worlds down under the water. So I'm going to highlight for you 4 different environments: hydrothermal vents, glass sponge reefs, seamounts, and cold seeps. How are we doing, Kim? Am I okay to get going, or do you have any pressing questions?
We're looking good online in terms of pressing questions. I guess I was just to confirm, glass sponges, those are animals, right?
They are, yes. And they're going to be my next environment that I show you guys. So I'll give you a better description of them then. So the first one is hydrothermal vents. Hydrothermal vents are hard to explain because they're so amazing and so unique. But what you're seeing here is this column chimney here. And hydrothermal vent, hydro meaning water, thermal meaning warm. It's literally where the Earth's crust is separating, and water gets entrained into the crust and it gets superheated and shot out. And this extreme environment, you would expect it to not have many animals, but what they've found through research is that actually there are weird, strange little hotspots of biodiversity down in the deep ocean. So just going back to some very basic, if you look at this image of the world, plate tectonics, the world is made up of plates that float around on magma. And if you look at our coast, we have the unique experience here that we live off of the smallest tectonic plates in the world. And so that environment that I'm talking about, we're seeing a lot here in these images is right here where there's two plates that are separating, that are pulling apart from each other. And this is an image that better describes kind of what's happening there. So where tectonic plates are moving apart from each other, water gets pulled down into those plates where it's pulling apart. And it gets superheated by the magma, the mantle, and it picks up all these minerals and it gets really, really hot and it gets pressurized and it gets shot out into the water column. But down at the deep sea, it's got high pressure. It's really, really cold. It's 4 degrees Celsius. So super hot, over 300 up to 400 degrees Celsius water is mixing with 4 degrees Celsius water. So it precipitates out all these like minerals. And that's what makes these big chimney columns. And it also makes these big clouds almost of minerals. And what's fascinating is that there's actually animals that thrive in this environment. Sometimes you can see diffuse bedding, so almost the water just looks shimmery, not so cloudy. These animals are living in 10 to 20 or 90 degrees Celsius water. And then there's ones that are actually really close to the hot water. Now, what's particularly fascinating about hydrothermal vents is that they change the way we understand how life exists on our planet. So it used to be when we were taught in school that we understand that all life was based off of photosynthesis. So taking the sun's energy, plants can then convert that into food for us. But what they found down here at this deep ocean is that actually there's a process called chemosynthesis, where bacteria can take all these chemicals and metal elements in this water and to convert it into our food, into carbon. So it really did change the way that we understand life on our planet, potentially even other planets. And I know this just seems so strange, and I totally understand that. So I'm going to show you a video of what I'm talking about. This is one of the online resources that I'd like to share with you, is that, oh, it says that my screen sharing has stopped. Can you guys still see my screen share window? Can you still hear me, Kim?
Sorry, I was muted. I see you now, but not your window.
Okay, let's try this again. Screen share. There we go. So one of the online resources that I'd like you to direct you to is DFO's YouTube channel. So they have their own YouTube channel, and when you go to the homepage, there's everything from careers to you know, the technology, to all sorts of things. And these are some fantastic videos that were created about the deep sea. So definitely one of those resources to check out. But this is what hydrothermal vents look like. So that water's pretty hot, that you can see shimmering. That animal got his tail in, and then look what this crab happens to be snacking on. These long white tubes are actually a type of worm, believe it or not. And then even when the vents are done, the columns are left behind, and things like corals and glass sponges can grow up on them. So just incredible. Mm-hmm. So that's some footage from Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And
Heidi, I was just going to add, I have put the video link into the chat panel. So if you're able and you're here with us in Zoom, you can copy and paste that video link and you can check out more videos like that later.
Wonderful, thank you. So yes, that's the Fisheries and Oceans YouTube channel. And I just wanted to highlight that one of the reasons I know so much about the hydrothermal vents is my master's was with Dr. Raina Tunnicliffe, and in 1982, she led an expedition to discover Canada's first hydrothermal vents. And she was my master's supervisor, and then she kept her own collection of hydrothermal vent specimens, and then she donated to the museum. So we have a collection of these animals in our museum in that shelving that you saw, and we did a little mini exhibit on her. The last thing that I'd like to highlight is such a unique environment, definitely very far from that mud that we were expecting. And because of her efforts largely is that this became Canada's very first marine protected area in March of 2003. So the Endeavour hydrothermal vents right here became Canada's first protected area.
Is that the hydrothermal vent we're seeing in the video? Right now we still see that YouTube screen, or do you have
really?
PowerPoint showing now?
Oh, pardon me? I do have my PowerPoint showing. It wasn't showing?
No.
Oh, thanks. That helps a lot. Let me fix that. There we go.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. So I'll just go back. So I was just highlighting this is Dr. Raina Tunnicliffe. Sorry about that, everybody. And then her collection was donated to the museum, and we did a little mini exhibit on the Endeavour hydrothermal vents. And then back to this map that we had, I just wanted to highlight that right where those plates are spreading, the Endeavour hydrothermal vent became Canada's first marine protected area. So we're going to move on to the next really cool environment in our deep sea that is glass sponge reefs. So starting off, what is a sponge? Sponges are basically filter feeding sacs. It's a little bit strange, but all these holes that you see on the side of this specimen that we have here, they draw water in through those little holes, filter out food, and then shoot it out the top or out of holes called oscula. They don't actually have any cells or any tissue, or sorry, they don't have any tissues or organs or anything like that. They're just a collection of cells, but they can do incredible things. And there's sponges that are called glass sponges, and they can actually build their body out of glass. So they peel silica out of the water column and use it to build up their bodies. So this is an example of a species called the cloud sponge, also called Aphroclystes vastus is its scientific name. And there's a few glass sponges and in BC that can form reefs, almost like coral reefs. What's really neat about this is that we are one of the only places in the world you can find these, and that they existed back in the fossil period. So back in the Jurassic, when, you know, all those other things lived, like dinosaurs and cool things. But they thought they'd gone extinct. And then in the late 80s, they found them off the BC coast. And what's,
Heidi, sorry, is this something scuba divers found, or how were these discovered?
I'm not sure about the very first, but I think it was with the submersibles with the either manned or ROV, so with the images. But there are some sponges that glass reefs that can be within scuba diving distance. I believe they can reach up to about 60, so it's kind of close. So yeah, pretty fascinating. So yeah, this would all be like a remotely operated or submersible or camera of some sort taking these images. I'd like to highlight that Dr. Henry Reiswig is one of the research associates that we have at the museum, and he is one of the world experts on glass sponges. And what he does is fascinating. He takes images or like little snips when researchers are out. For example, our colleagues at DFO there, they take little snips off these glass sponges And then he looks at them and he looks at the structure of each of them closer and closer and closer. He looks at the skeletal elements of them, and this is how he's able to tell different species apart. And I just love his work because these are little elements of what make up this animal, but to me, they almost also look like art. So I just thought that's a pretty neat way to describe to you how taxonomists work, how they look at the different features that make an animal. And
sorry, Heidi, one more piece about someone has just let us know that glass sponges have been located in the Saanich Inlet at approximately 100 feet.
There we go. Yes.
Awesome. It's great having a community out there to help us with all the info. Thank you.
I'm going to guess that was Sharice, but it might be someone else.
Cat Black.
Oh, thank you, Kat.
And yeah, Saanich Inlet, right up to the southern half, there's suspected to help keep the waters aerated.
Yes,
this comes from Wesley. Oh, sorry, this comes from Harold Wolf, who's watching us on Facebook.
Yeah, they can process an incredible amount of water. And so they actually can be really good indicators of like what's going on in the ecosystem because they process so much of the water and filter out the food and that sort of thing from it. So I just wanted to highlight in this image here from Sally Lees from the University of Alberta, you can see all the different animals that live within these reefs. So they do provide that extra structural habitat, just like we were talking about with coral reefs. You know, they increase the biodiversity of an area. So do these glass sponge reefs. But if you can imagine, their body's made up of glass, so they're very fragile, vulnerable. And so at least some of the reefs, like we said, there's some in Saanich Inlet, there's some up in Galliano, there's some up in Howe Sound, but at least some of them have been protected. So the ones here called the Hecate Strait and Queen Charlotte Sound, and these make up over 1,000 square kilometers of glass sponge reef that's protected. And this was another marine protected area. I think it was established in 2013. And just very incredible animals. I'd like to direct you to for another learning resource is our learning portal. Actually, through the museum, we have a learning portal. This is the website that you can go to. And I had a summer intern from Young Canada Works. Her name was Ayla Barton, and she helped make this amazing glass sponge pathway. So when you go to our learning portals, there's things called pathways. You can look at the timeline. Anyway, explore it. It's super wonderful. But there's a pathway on glass sponges. And what you can do is once you get into it, there's an overview section, a read section, a watch, a look, a meet. So depending on your education level, what you need, you can explore, for example, and watch. There's some videos about marine protected areas on our coast on glass sponges. You can look at images. If you're an older learner, you can do some reading. So just want to direct you to that resource. I'm not doing the best on time, so I'll just keep moving unless there's any big questions. Doing okay, Kim? Yeah, okay. So one of the other cool deep sea environments we have are seamounts. So seamounts are classified as anything that's over 1,000 meters. Otherwise, they call them knolls or hills, that sort of thing. But seamounts are very cool. So if you, for example, if you look at this one here called Explorer Seamount, this is like the size of Baker, but underneath the water. It's very fascinating. It's incredible. But what they find is just like on land, when you get mountains, you get different air currents and different patterns. The same thing's happening in the ocean. The general currents, these tend to create different currents, different upwelling. It creates more productivity, and it ends up feeding all the way up the food chain. So seamounts, they're finding are, again, kind of oases for life out in an area where they weren't expecting them. You can have more whales, more fish, more, they've even found some of our commercial species that they thought were just on our continental shelf as far out at some of these seamounts. And again, the image that I showed you before of this glass sponge weird utopia is actually from one of our seamounts and from our colleagues at Fisheries and Oceans, and when they explored with an expedition partnership. And this just highlights, this is like less than 2 meters or about 2 meters on, you know, the side of one of these seamounts. And what you can see there, if you're not familiar with it, these big branching structures, those are called corals. This is a sponge, there's an octopus, this is a sea cucumber, there's a nudibranch, a coral, another different coral, this one's a different style. And then even if you zoom in on the corals, there's a brittle star. There's shrimp living amongst them. So again, these mountains are creating unexpected hotspots for biodiversity. And I just wanted to highlight that the Fisheries and Oceans has now established what they're calling an area of interest. It hasn't become a fully protected marine area. This one up north here off of Heidi is called Sconcingulus bowie seamount. It is protected, but then they've established this area of interest around quite a few of our seamounts, and it's got some protection, and they're hoping to move it towards a marine protected area. I just wanted to highlight from 2016, they had only 18, I believe, known seamounts, and they've really upped the mapping and the exploration over the past few years, and we're now at 52 seamounts, and then a bunch of knolls. So those are kind of showing the difference between these images here. A lot of them are unnamed yet and not fully explored with, you know, the submersibles or ROVs. The last environment is super quick. It's cold seeps, and the long and short of this one is that more similar to the hydrothermal vents, there's places in the Earth's crust where methane is seeping out. This is a type of gas, and what they're finding is actually there's a bunch of animals that can again use bacteria to live in these very extreme environments. And in Canada, we've got a few spots that we know of and a few collections. But especially based on work on the coasts of Oregon and California, we're seeing that they're more prolific than originally thought, and that we think if we get the right technology in here that we can explore them better. So that's a partnership that we have going forward with, again, being led by Fisheries and Oceans, but the museum is involved. And we're looking in the next few years to explore these in more detail. So some of the online resources I shared today, Fisheries and Oceans Canada YouTube channel, so many videos about so many different aspects of careers related to oceans. Our RBCM learning portal and archives. And again, I'm a marine biologist, but there's content on there of everything from Indigenous cultures to human histories, all sorts of different aspects of the museum. And then the last one is Ocean Networks Canada. I haven't particularly highlighted them throughout the talk, but they're often collaborators on a lot of projects, and they do donate specimens to the museum. But what Oceans Network Canada is it's a network of underwater cabled observatories. It's a fascinating network, and this is their website. And I'll just draw your attention to, you can find out about all the different things that they do. But particularly for me, I have a young kid, so I'm thinking a lot about pictures and videos lately for learning. But if you go to their Sights and Sounds tab, they have videos where you can live stream underwater cameras. You can go to videos that they've compiled of past expeditions, and you can see a lot of this and hear about these stories and hear what kind of research they're doing underneath the water. So that was all very quick. I covered a lot of material, but that kind of gives you an insight into what's off our BC coast. Probably a little bit more unexpected than most people thought. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I have a few questions here for you. Claire and Diane are wondering, if you stepped on or dropped a glass sponge, would it break and shatter the way glass does?
Yes, essentially, yes. They're hardier than you'd think. So overall, the larger specimens can vary in their kind of strength and how well that skeleton's made up. And so theoretically, say I had a big specimen like that could fit in my hands. If I dropped that, parts of it would break, but parts of the structure would still stay together. So the specimen wouldn't be completely lost or damaged. But if you were to step on a piece and say, try and grind it up, it would crumble. It really would, like glass. And that's part of why they have protection, is because a lot of the ways that we fish with trawling or long lining or that sort of thing would damage glass sponge reefs. And I can't remember if I highlighted this, but in addition to being known from the fossil period, they themselves can grow to be very old. So they're long-lived species. So the estimates vary, but something that, you know, is a couple meters tall could be something like 200 meters old. And then the reefs themselves, when the sponge dies, that glass structure is left behind, and then the new glasses settle on top of it. And so they've measured one of the reefs. They estimate from the base of the reef out to the edge of the living animals, it's like 9,000 years old. So these are long-lived, incredible animals that need this protection. So they are vulnerable, and yeah, I guess that answers the question about how they would do. The other thing is that sometimes if, for example, when DFO takes samples, they'll break off a piece of it. As long as usually the base is still intact, they can still keep growing. So because they're just a ball of cells, it's not like we're killing them by breaking off a piece of them. So that is the other thing, is if the extent of damage affects whether or not the animals live. Okay, I don't know who wants animal love right now, but
hi, puppy. Heidi,
working from home.
One of the pleasures of working from home. Heidi, thank you so much. I know you're also doing other work, and you're going to talk about that the next time you join us. You're going to share some of the research you're doing with tunicates and bryozoans. So we'll hope you'll come back as viewers to join us again. You can also see more of Heidi if you check out This Week in History. It's a weekly television series produced by Czech TV, and we have back episodes on our RBCM YouTube channel, including one with Heidi called The Fascinating World of Sponges. So you can see more about these glass sponges there. And as Heidi so well mentioned, the Learning Portal has a glass sponge page, but also a pathway called Fathom the Deep. This series, RBCM at Home, takes place every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. Join us next Tuesday, and you can meet our newest curator, Dr. India Real Young. She's the curator of art and images, and she's going to give us a home tour of her art collection, talk about how to spot a deal, and what you can do to support artists today, right now. If you have young people in your lives, let them know about RBCM at Home Kids, which is on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. These are hands-on sessions that feature our museum educator, hosted by our museum educator, Chris O'Connor, and he has museum staff joining him with activities you can do at home. You can watch for those here on the Zoom channel, or you can join live, or you can watch on Facebook Live, and we'll also be putting those posted recordings later. We're also going to be starting a series called RBCM Outside, and museum educator Liz O'Connor will be hosting those. In the first one, we're going to be talking about the poles in Thunderbird Park, and some recent work that was done, and Luann Neal will be joining us for that. I am going to stop this recording, but if folks wanted to stay on to have any questions answered, I know Winston, you had some questions. Maybe we can get those to Heidi right now, but for now we'll stop the recording, and thank you all very much for joining us.